The bus was crowded, packed with tired faces, each person lost in their own thoughts. Outside, the city moved in a rhythmic blur, a mix of car horns, hurried footsteps, and the distant hum of conversations. Jamal shifted in his seat, his backpack resting on his lap, earbuds in but no music playing. He was just trying to get home, just another ordinary day. Then she stepped in. A pregnant woman, visibly exhausted, holding onto the metal pole for support. Her breath was uneven, her hand cradling her belly as if trying to ease the weight of it. The bus jerked forward, and she stumbled slightly, catching herself just in time. No one moved. Jamal noticed how people averted their eyes, pretending not to see. Some stared at their phones, others looked out the window. The unspoken rule of public transportation, mind your business, don't get involved. But something inside Jamal wouldn't let him ignore it. Without thinking, he pulled out his earbuds and stood up. Here, you can sit. The woman looked at him, surprise flickering across her tired features. For a second, she hesitated, as if she wasn't sure whether to accept or refuse. Then, with a grateful smile, she nodded and carefully lowered herself into the seat. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Jamal gave a small nod and gripped the metal pole, balancing himself as the bus rumbled forward. He wasn't looking for appreciation or attention. It was just the right thing to do. But then something unexpected happened. The woman reached into her bag and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. Without a word, she handed it to Jamal, pressing it into his palm before he could react. Confused, he glanced down at it, feeling the slight tremble in her fingers as she let go. Before he could ask, the bus came to a stop. The woman slowly stood, adjusted the strap of her purse over her shoulder, and stepped off. Jamal watched as she disappeared into the busy street, swallowed by the crowd. He looked down at the note, curiosity prickling at the back of his mind. What could it possibly say? His fingers hesitated before unfolding it. The paper was slightly crumpled, the ink smudged in places, as if written in a hurry. His eyes moved over the words, and as he read them, his heartbeat slowed. Then, it quickened. His breath caught in his throat. The message was short. Simple. But it changed everything. Find me before they do. Jamal's mind raced, his pulse pounding in his ears. Who was she? And more importantly, who was looking for her? Jamal's fingers tightened around the note as the bus jolted forward again. His eyes scanned the words over and over, but they didn't change. Find me before they do. It didn't make sense. Who was after her? And why would she trust him, a total stranger, with this message? His heart pounded as he looked up, half expecting to see someone watching him, but the faces around him were the same, indifferent, tired, lost in their own world. No one was paying him any attention. His stop was coming up, but he wasn't sure if he should go home like usual. The note felt like a puzzle, like a door that had suddenly been opened to something he didn't understand. He shoved it into his pocket, his mind spinning with questions. When he stepped off the bus, the evening air hit him, cool and laced with the distant smell of fried food from the corner shop. The streetlights flickered on, casting a dull glow on the pavement. He walked down his usual path, passing familiar storefronts and houses, but everything felt different now, like the world had shifted slightly off balance. At home, his mom was in the kitchen, humming to herself as she stirred a pot on the stove. The scent of simmering spices filled the air, grounding him for a moment. "You're late," she said, not looking up. "Yeah, bus was slow," he muttered, slipping his backpack off and setting it by the door. She glanced at him then, eyes narrowing slightly. "You okay? You look distracted." He hesitated, debating whether to tell her about the note. But what would he even say? That some random pregnant woman gave him a cryptic message before disappearing into the city? It sounded crazy even in his own head. "I'm fine," he said instead. "Just tired." His mom studied him for a second longer before nodding, returning her focus to dinner. In his room, Jamal pulled the note back out, smoothing the paper with his fingers. The handwriting was rushed but neat, like someone who had written it under pressure but still wanted to be understood. He turned it over, hoping for more, but it was blank on the back. No name, no number, nothing. He thought about the woman, her tired eyes, the way her hand had trembled slightly as she gave him the note. She had looked scared. Or maybe desperate. He should have asked her something, anything, but the moment had passed too quickly. Pulling out his phone, he opened a search engine and typed in missing persons reports, wondering if she had been reported missing. But nothing stood out. There were too many cases, too many faces, and none of them matched hers. Jamal exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over his face. Maybe he was reading too much into this. Maybe it was just some weird coincidence. But deep down, he didn't believe that. Something was off. And he had a feeling this was only the beginning. Jamal couldn't shake the feeling that he had been pulled into something much bigger than himself. The note burned in his pocket, its weight heavier than it should have been. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, he replayed the moment over and over, the way the woman had looked at him, the urgency in her voice, the strange choice to trust a total stranger. Why him? The next morning, he took the same bus, scanning the faces of every passenger, hoping to see her again. But she wasn't there. He checked every stop, his pulse quickening each time a pregnant woman stepped on, only to feel disappointment settle in when it wasn't her. By the time he got to school, he was exhausted. His best friend, Malik, immediately picked up on it. "Man, you look like you ain't slept in a week," Malik said, leaning against the lockers. "What's up?" Jamal hesitated, then pulled out the note and handed it over. Malik frowned, reading it twice before looking up. "This some kind of joke?" "I don't think so." Malik handed it back, eyes narrowing. "Okay, so, who's they? And why's she running?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out." Malik let out a low whistle. "Bro, you're acting like this is some movie. You sure she wasn't just messing with you?" Jamal shook his head. "You didn't see her, man. She was scared." "Then maybe you should go to the cops." Jamal thought about that. It was the logical thing to do. But what would he even tell them? He had no name, no description other than a pregnant woman on a bus, and a vague note that didn't really explain anything. The police wouldn't take him seriously. "Nah," he said finally. "Not yet." Malik sighed. "You always gotta make things complicated." Later that day, during lunch, Jamal overheard something that made his skin prickle. A group of students at the next table were talking about a missing woman, someone who had been all over the news. A woman who had vanished without a trace 2 days ago. His heart pounded as he turned toward them. "Who's missing?" he asked, trying to keep his voice casual. One of the girls, Sophie, looked up. "You didn't hear? Some pregnant lady went missing. Like, just disappeared out of nowhere." Jamal's breath caught. "Do they know anything else?" Sophie shook her head. "Not really. Just that she was last seen downtown, near the bus station." Jamal forced himself to nod, acting like it wasn't a big deal, but inside, everything clicked into place. It had to be her. That night, he searched online again, this time with new keywords. And there she was, her face staring back at him from a missing persons report. Emily Carter. 26 years old. 7 months pregnant. Last seen 2 days ago. Jamal swallowed hard. His gut had been right. But that only made things worse. If she had disappeared right after giving him that note, then whoever she was running from had caught up to her. And if that was true, she might not have much time left. His hands shook as he stared at the screen. He had a choice to make. Ignore this and pretend it never happened, or follow the only clue he had and try to find her before it was too late. Deep down, he already knew what he was going to do. Jamal couldn't sit still. Every fiber of his being told him that Emily was in danger and that the note she had given him wasn't just a desperate plea, it was a warning. But what did it mean? Who was they, and why was she running? He knew he had to do something, but he had no idea where to start. He decided to retrace her last known steps. Downtown, near the bus station, the streets were crowded as usual, but Jamal felt a strange awareness, as if someone might be watching him. He checked his phone again, reading Emily's missing persons report. There were no updates. No signs of a breakthrough. It was like she had vanished into thin air. Malik had refused to come along, calling him crazy for getting involved. "You're not a detective, man. Just let the police handle it," he had said. But Jamal couldn't shake the feeling that this was bigger than just a missing persons case. Emily had chosen him for a reason. He approached a street vendor near the bus stop, an older man with tired eyes who had probably seen everything that happened on this block. "Excuse me, sir. Have you seen this woman?" Jamal showed him Emily's picture on his phone. The man squinted, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, I remember her. She looked real nervous. Kept looking over her shoulder." Jamal's stomach tightened. "Did she say anything?" The vendor scratched his chin. "Not to me, but she got into a black car with some guy. Didn't look like she wanted to, though." Jamal's breath hitched. "Do you remember what he looked like?" The vendor hesitated. "Big guy. Real sharp suit. But what I remember most was the way she looked at me when the door closed. Like she wanted to scream but couldn't." Jamal's mind raced. Someone had taken her. And if she had been that scared, it meant she wasn't just missing, she had been kidnapped. As he turned to leave, he felt a prickle at the back of his neck, like someone was watching him. He spun around, scanning the crowd. A man in a dark hoodie stood across the street, seemingly staring right at him. But as soon as their eyes met, the man turned and walked away. Jamal's pulse quickened. Was he being followed? He pushed through the crowd, trying to keep the man in sight. The figure turned down an alley, and Jamal hesitated for only a moment before following. His heart pounded as he stepped into the narrow passage, his footsteps echoing against the brick walls. The alley was empty. Jamal frowned, glancing around. There was nowhere for the man to have gone. No doors. No exits. It was like he had disappeared. A sudden sound behind him made him whirl around. A car was idling at the alley's entrance. The window rolled down just enough for a voice to slip through. "You should stop looking, kid." Jamal froze. His fists clenched. "Who are you?" he demanded. The person chuckled. "That's not the question you should be asking. The question is, do you really want to know the truth?" The car sped off before he could say another word. Jamal's breath came fast. This wasn't just about Emily anymore. He had stepped into something dangerous, something people didn't want him to uncover. But the more they tried to scare him off, the more he was determined to find out the truth. He pulled out his phone and dialed Malik. "I think I just got threatened," he said, voice shaking. Malik groaned. "Man, I told you to let this go." "I can't." Malik sighed. "Fine. What's the plan?" Jamal exhaled, gripping the phone. "We find Emily before it's too late." Jamal's hands tightened around his phone as Malik hesitated on the other end of the line. There was a long pause before Malik finally spoke. "All right, man. Where do we even start?" Jamal looked around, still feeling the weight of the mysterious warning lingering in the air. That car. The guy in the suit. Emily was taken by someone who doesn't want us looking into this. You realize how crazy this sounds, right? Malik sighed. This isn't just some missing person case anymore. This is something else. And people like us don't just investigate stuff like this without getting hurt. Jamal shook his head. Emily gave me that note for a reason. She wanted me to know something. And now I think she's in real danger. A few hours later, Malik finally gave in and agreed to meet him at the library. Jamal had spent the past hour searching online, looking for any news of similar disappearances. But nothing connected. Emily wasn't just another missing person. This was deliberate. Planned. And it had something to do with whatever she was running from. When Malik arrived, he placed a folded piece of paper in front of Jamal. "You're not gonna believe this," he muttered. Jamal picked it up and unfolded it carefully. His eyes scanned the words written in shaky, desperate handwriting. It was a missing poster, not for Emily, but for someone else. A woman. The resemblance was striking. Same blonde hair. Same wide eyes filled with fear. "Who is this?" Jamal asked, a chill creeping down his spine. Malik sat down heavily. "That's Emily's mother." Jamal felt the air leave his lungs. "What?" "She went missing almost 30 years ago. Same city. Same kind of circumstances. No one ever found her." Jamal's mind reeled. "You think Emily's disappearance is connected to her mother's?" Think about it, Malik said, lowering his voice. Emily was terrified. She left you that note, knowing she might not have another chance. What if she was trying to warn you that whatever happened to her mother is happening again? Jamal's pulse pounded. If Emily's mother had vanished the same way, then this wasn't random. This was a pattern. A cycle. And if he didn't figure out the truth fast, Emily might never be seen again. Jamal looked at the missing poster again, but something about it felt off. He stared at the date. Wait, this doesn't make sense, he said suddenly. Emily's mother disappeared 27 years ago. But she was pregnant when she vanished. Malik frowned. So? Jamal swallowed hard. So, how was Emily born? Silence stretched between them as the weight of the question settled. Either the timeline is wrong, Malik said slowly, or someone has been lying about Emily's entire life. Jamal's heart raced as the reality sank in. What if Emily had never really been meant to exist? What if someone had taken her mother and kept the child? And if that was true, then whoever took Emily now was making sure the truth stayed buried forever. Jamal's hands trembled as he stared at the missing poster. The truth was beginning to piece itself together in his mind, but the more he thought about it, the more impossible it seemed. If Emily's mother had gone missing while pregnant 27 years ago, then someone had raised Emily in secret. Someone had kept her hidden. And now, she had vanished the same way. Malik exhaled sharply. We need to find out where she was taken. Fast. Jamal's mind raced as he thought back to Emily's note. It wasn't just a warning, it was a clue. He pulled it out again, reading the words carefully. Look where it all started. It clicked. The old house. The one Emily had mentioned in passing before, the place she had always felt drawn to. Jamal and Malik wasted no time. They jumped into Malik's car and sped toward the outskirts of town, where the house sat abandoned, hidden behind overgrown trees. As they pulled up, the atmosphere felt thick, suffocating. The house was eerily silent, the windows boarded up. Jamal swallowed hard. She has to be here. They crept toward the front door, which was slightly ajar. A cold gust of air greeted them as they stepped inside. The house smelled of dust and something rotten, something old. The wooden floor creaked beneath their feet. Then they heard it. A faint noise, almost like a whimper. Jamal froze, exchanging a glance with Malik before moving toward the sound. They followed it down a long hallway, past peeling wallpaper and broken furniture, until they reached a door. Malik reached for the handle, but before he could turn it, a voice echoed from the darkness. You shouldn't have come here. Jamal's breath caught in his throat as a figure emerged from the shadows. A man in a suit, the same one from before. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were sharp, cold. Where is she? Jamal demanded, his voice shaking. The man tilted his head. You don't understand what you're getting yourself into. Malik clenched his fists. Then explain it to us. The man let out a slow sigh, as if he had been expecting this moment. Emily was never supposed to find out. Neither were you. Jamal's chest tightened. Find out what? The man hesitated, then finally spoke. She isn't who she thinks she is. Emily was never born the way she believes. She was created. Silence filled the room as Jamal and Malik processed his words. Created. Malik echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. The man nodded. Her mother was part of something bigger. An experiment. A project that was shut down before the world could know. But Emily, she survived. We watched over her, kept her safe. But when she started digging into her past, she became a liability. Jamal's stomach turned. So you kidnapped her? To keep the secret buried? The man's gaze darkened. To protect her. You have no idea what's at stake. Before Jamal could respond, a sudden noise came from behind the door. A muffled cry. Without thinking, he lunged forward and pushed it open. Inside, Emily sat tied to a chair, her eyes wide with fear. Jamal, she gasped. He rushed to her, untying the ropes as Malik stood guard at the door. Are you okay? Jamal asked, his hands shaking. Emily nodded frantically. We have to go. Now. But just as they turned to leave, the man in the suit stepped in front of them. You walk out of here, and you put her in more danger than she already is, he warned. Jamal didn't hesitate. She deserves the truth. The man studied them for a moment before stepping aside. Then you better run. Jamal and Malik didn't wait for an explanation. They grabbed Emily and bolted out of the house, running until their lungs burned. As they reached the car, Emily looked at Jamal, tears in her eyes. I remember now, she whispered. Jamal turned to her, breathless. Remember what? Emily's voice trembled. Everything. And just like that, Jamal realized their nightmare wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Jamal sat in the back seat with Emily, watching her as she tried to steady her breathing. Her hands were still shaking, and he could tell she was struggling to find the right words. Malik kept his foot pressed against the gas pedal, taking quick glances in the rearview mirror, making sure they weren't being followed. The car sped down the empty road, the weight of the night pressing down on all of them. Jamal reached over and gently held Emily's hand. Take your time, he said softly. Just tell us what you remember. Emily swallowed hard, staring out the window as if searching for the right place to begin. I remember my mother, she finally whispered. Not the way I used to. Before, I had memories that felt incomplete. Like something was missing. But now, it's clear. She turned to face Jamal, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and understanding. She knew. She knew what I was. Jamal and Malik exchanged a glance. What do you mean? Malik asked. Emily took a deep breath. The man back there, he wasn't lying. I wasn't born. At least, not in the way most people are. She hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper. I was created. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Jamal wanted to say something, anything, to make sense of it, but no words came. My mother was part of something bigger. A project, an experiment. I don't know all the details, but I remember flashes. Needles. Voices whispering. I was supposed to be something special. Something different. But she didn't want that life for me. Emily's voice broke slightly. She ran. She took me and disappeared. That's why she went missing. Jamal felt his heart pounding. And that's why they took you now. Because you started looking for answers. Emily nodded. They knew I was getting too close. And they were right. Once I started digging, everything started coming back to me. The pieces of my past that never made sense before suddenly fit together. She clenched her fists. They were afraid I'd remember. That I'd find out the truth. Malik shook his head in disbelief. But why? What are they so scared of? Emily hesitated before speaking. Because I wasn't the only one. A chill ran down Jamal's spine. What do you mean? There were others, Emily whispered. Like me. I don't know how many, but I remember glimpses of them. Faces. Some older, some younger. And now that I know what I am, I realize something else. She turned to look at Jamal, her eyes dark with realization. If I survived, then maybe they did too. Jamal's mind was racing. This was bigger than anything he had imagined. It wasn't just about Emily's past. It was about an entire secret that had been buried for decades. Malik exhaled sharply. So what now? If they were willing to take you once, they'll do it again. We can't just go home and pretend none of this happened. Emily nodded. I know. But I don't think running is the answer. I think we need to fight back. Jamal frowned. Fight back how? Emily stared ahead, determination setting in her features. By finding the others. Silence filled the car as the weight of her words sank in. Jamal finally spoke. That's dangerous. If they find out we're looking. They already know, Emily interrupted. They knew the second I started asking questions. And now, we have two choices. We can live in fear, constantly looking over our shoulders, waiting for them to come back, or we can take control. Jamal couldn't deny the truth in her words. He had never seen Emily this certain about anything before. She wasn't the same girl who had simply been searching for her past. She had found it, and now she was ready to do something about it. Malik slowed the car as they reached the edge of town. So where do we start? He asked. Emily took a deep breath. We start with my mother's journal. Jamal's brows furrowed. Her journal. Emily nodded. She kept notes. I remember seeing them as a child, though I never understood what they meant. If she knew about the others, if she knew how to keep me safe, maybe she left something behind that can help us. Jamal felt a mix of hope and fear. He knew that whatever they were about to uncover would change everything. Malik pulled the car to a stop outside Emily's house. They all sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of their decision settle in. Then, without another word, they stepped out of the car and walked toward the house together. Jamal didn't know what they would find. He didn't know if they would ever truly be safe. But one thing was certain, this wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning.